all to the Ordinary Governance Committee. And do we need to introduce each other, or we know everybody?
Chair, do you have the, if we just go through the sort of guide, the protocol of things that you need to read out? Do you have the Chair's briefing guidance?
No, I haven't. Oh, no, I haven't got the briefing. Let me just see. No, I haven't got the briefing. Didn't receive it. Well, let's just start that. I can see that we start the Ordinary Governance Committee. Let's introduce ourselves. Wyness and Councillor Sindhapurival, representing Heston Central Ward. I'm the chair of the committee. Can we go to Councillor Todd to start with you?
Okay, good evening. My name is Councillor John Todd. I'm a councillor in Chiswick Homefield Ward.
Councillor Mann.
Good evening. My name is Councillor Ambert Mann. I'm the councillor in Heston East Ward. Look, I'm almost forgetting. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Easton.
Good evening. I'm Councillor Richard Easton. I represent Osterley and Spring Grove Ward, and I'm a member of this committee.
Thank you. And the officers, I can't see the officers. I can't see any officers here. Yeah. Oh, there, Councillor Lal. Can you introduce yourself? You're muted. You're muted, Councillor Lal.
Hello, Chair. Good evening, all.
Good evening.
Councillor Lal, Heston East Ward.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Sumra, can you introduce yourself?
It's muted.
You're muted. Councillor Sumra, you're muted. Could you unmute yourself?
Hello, good evening, all. Hi, I'm Amrit. Hi, Gurmail. Hi, Mr. Easton.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Any officers here?
Sorry?
Can't see any officers.
Yeah, good evening, Chair. Clive Pelfman, Executive Director of Finance and Resources. And then behind the scenes, who will jump in when they need to, we have Rupa Ragwani, Director of Corporate Finance, Rog Wigbout, our Finance Manager. We have Mike Pinder, Head of Internal Audit, and we also have our colleagues from Democratic and Committee Services, our colleagues from IT, and also our friends from our external auditor, Mazars.
Good. Obviously, our IT people will be making record the process when we go through the meeting. So later on, everybody can welcome to public who may be watching at home. Well, you're satisfied with what goes on. So shall we start then?
Sure is.
Yeah. So there are no apologies. We're all here. 6 are here. So any apologies from any officer? No. On any other communication, I haven't got any. Shall we go to the notes of the meeting of the 22nd of March 21?
Yep.
Because there was a failure of the IT system at times, so the meeting wasn't declared that is fulfilled its purpose. So, and it's a discussion on agendas and the minutes of the meeting held on 11th of January. Are we happy with that? So,
Yep.
yeah.
Yes, Chair.
Yeah. 8 to 12. If you go there, then now let's do item 4, a review of the polling districts. Clive, you're going to take it.
Yeah, this is the work of our electoral panel, a number of members in the subgroup working together in conjunction with the Boundary Commission's work of last year, making recommendations of changes toward boundaries and a number of councillors within each ward. Of course, we discussed this on the 22nd of March. The notes were in item 2 of the contributions that members made, but effectively at the time you supported the recommendations, which were the location of, or the proposed location of the polling stations for the May 2022 elections in the now 22 wards, and you also gave authority for us to go and consult relevant organisations and stakeholders who will be impacted directly.
Yeah. Any question any colleague has? So we did accept it, but we have informally accepted it now because we had some problems. Is that okay?
I move that be adopted, Chair.
Thank you.
I second that.
Thank you. Thank you. It's adopted. Thank you very much. So if you go to the next item, let me just get the papers down.
Mike Bender.
Mike Binder?
Yep.
Good evening, all. So
Yeah,
this is the internal audit plan for 21-22. Again, members saw this at the meeting on the 22nd of March, and posed some questions and were overall happy.
Yes.
So I'm asking for your approval for the plan, please.
Agreed, colleagues. We did approve, but we can go through the motions again. Yes, Councillor Easton.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I wasn't present on the 22nd, so I've been through the papers, and I do have a question really about the table on page 74 at the end of this item.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that table is about the the 5-year program, and I'm intrigued by the section on housing planning and communities, where I'm not seeing any work on the planning approval processes for major developments. So I may be missing something there, but the council does a lot of work with developers in advance of planning applications on major developments, and I'm wondering whether that activity in terms of the processes is subject to any internal audit review at any point in time. I would feel that residents would take some assurance from it being reviewed in or processes reviewed in some points. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Is there anything, obviously I see on page 69, the Lambton 360 housing investment, that's the thing. Does anything covers there, Mike?
Sorry, I just want to try and understand, Councillor Eason, are you talking about the planning process per se, or are you talking about the advice and consultation that we might provide to third parties if they're looking to do a large project, or are you talking about when we do our own projects?
I'm talking about the probably the advice to developers and right the way through to the approval of the or otherwise of a planning application. I'm conscious. Recently we've had the Berkeley St Edwards developments in my ward, and they were that went to planning committee on the 8th of April. There was an enormous amount of material around those that led through to officers' reports. And there was continues to be enormous public interest in those, and that's got me thinking about what internal audit work covers that development control part of the Housing Planning and Communities Directorate. Does that kind of help a little bit?
It does. Yeah. So to a degree, that work would fall under the planning income review, which is broader than just the physical income coming in. It does consider some of that, and as you'll see, we've got something potentially flagged for next year. Although that does form part of the of my planning process rather than that planning process. So I'll take on board your observations and make sure when we're doing the planning process next year we cover that as well, just to ensure that it is taken on board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody?
Yeah, Chair, I've got a question. I mean, it just follows on from what Richard has said. I noticed that within the temporary accommodation, page 74, 1, 2, 3, fourth one down, right? There's nothing actually scheduled. I mean, are we not dealing with the temporary accommodation? What's the risk assessment, or actually we doing away with it and hence there is no risk assessment?
Actually, I'll be quite honest, it's just missing a tick. It's actually happening now. So apologies for that one.
I'm just going to second into process at the moment, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah, as it happens. So yeah, there should have been a tick in last year's box. Sorry about
that. Anybody else? Any questions? So, do we actually approve it? Accept it?
Yeah, I approve the recommendation, Chair.
Thank you.
Accept it.
Thank
you very much.
Thank you.
That's and the next item. Item 6. That's for you, Mike, as well.
Yep. So this is our usual performance report. So again, without going over the full details provided last time, it provides the update on our internal audit planned work and the fraud work for the quarter. 6 reports were finalised, which all had reasonable assurance, good progress on the plan overall, and good progress on the recommendations. Any questions? I can see Councillor Eason has a question.
Yeah, Councillor Eason.
Thank you, Chair. Mike, page 83, the risk areas which have not been fully implemented.
Yep.
The first one there, building control dating from 2017, 2018. Could you expand a little bit on that one? Because at some level, that could be read as the risk that we've got substandard buildings being built in the borough, and therefore the risks associated with that. So I just wanted to understand a bit more about what's behind that and why it is taking so very long to implement those outstanding recommendations.
As you'll note, the implementation of that one was the 31st of March. I believe we've now had an update to confirm that all of those, I think all of the recommendations have now been progressed. We were kind of waiting for the 31st of March, which on the 22nd of March hadn't happened, but we have been talking to the services to try and ensure, and I did mention briefly, and apologies for not doing so again, that I'd had verbal indication that all of these were on target to be implemented for the 31st of March, and we're due to formally follow those up just to confirm that they've actually done that. I think that was something off the top of my head, that was something to do with the charging methodology, which needed to be reviewed, and there was a couple of interim heads that changed, but we've continued to follow up, and I believe that has now been implemented.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question here you have?
Yes, please.
Yes, just Councillor.
Hi, Mike. Just a recap. Can you tell me how many staff you've got?
So we're a shared service. There's 21 of us across the two councils. It's not quite a 50-50 split because there's slight variations in the services we offer.
Okay. If I'm entertained up to over £25, I have to declare it, and the register's in member services. When did you last inspect the register for senior officers of the borough?
So I can't remember the last time we did an audit of it, but we annually each chief officer submits the register to myself, Clive, and I think the monitoring officer, if I recall rightly.
And what's the definition of a senior officer, so I understand?
So each officer needs to do it, but basically each of the council's directorates keeps their own register, and then they submit that to us.
Okay. I've always found it strange that they keep the records in their department. So wouldn't you expect it to be with the chief exec or somewhere where it could be capable of being looked at?
So in different processes, but the fact that it comes in at the end of the year should mitigate that risk.
Okay, Mike, that's very good. Thank you very much.
Is there any evidence that the registry is reviewed by senior officers? That's what John. That's what you're saying.
Well, there's an aspect of that, of course.
Yeah. If the officers are reviewing as well, then obviously the auditor are happy with it. But if somebody else, the senior officer, should review as well. Look at it. That's what normally used to happen where I worked. Okay. Any other questions here? Okay. Well, we are moving quite far, but if you look, the savings here is quite significant, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, obviously, over £6 million. It's a lot of money. So we got to give the auditors a pat on the back, really, because they've done something that they saved the council more than £60 million. That's something I think we got to appreciate.
Yeah, well done, Mike and team. Yeah.
Yeah. So
you happy to note the report, sir?
Yeah. Yes, sure. Yeah. Happy to note the report.
Thank you.
Know the report, but congratulations for such a nice savings as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
Now come to item number 7, page 89 onwards. Is it Clive? You are.
It'd be myself.
Rupa, you doing it? Yeah.
Yes. Evening, members. So page 89 of the pack has a short covering report regarding the 1920 Statement of Accounts. It asks you to note the progress of the 1920 audit, and I'm pleased to say that we're kind of there with the completion of that, subject to obviously some final closing tasks, which is normal practice as we get to this stage. So the report basically requests for members to note the statement of accounts the link was provided within the report, and to approve the final accounts for signing by yourself, the chair, and the exec director of finance and resources. Attached in the packet are the two kind of final audit completion reports that Mazars are required to issue at the end of their audit work. Lucy's from Mazars is obviously on the call to run through any particular questions or just to give the key highlights from that, but I'm pleased to say that we're kind of there and ready to sign off the accounts this week. I'll hand over to Lucy.
Yeah, we're there now. Lucy, can you really say anything about this? It's taken a long time to get here. You're muted. Lucy, you're muted.
I'm so sorry. So sorry. You do it at least once a day. So thank you, Chair. I'm sorry it's taken this long, but we are there now, bar the final pieces of paperwork. We are there now. So if I can just run members through the audit completion reports that we have issued for the authority and the pension fund. I'll take them fairly quickly. I will presume they're read, but there are a few matters that I do need to highlight to you.
Yes, please.
So the key things are that we propose an unqualified opinion on the accounts, but it will include an emphasis of matter around the material valuation uncertainty of the council's holding of land and buildings and investment property, and of the council's share of property fund assets that are held by the pension fund. And just to assure members that this was very common across local authorities in 1920 and was a result of the coronavirus pandemic. We propose a clean value for money conclusion. We've had no objections to the 2019-20 accounts, and our work on the whole of government accounts, which we're also required to do, will take place shortly after we've signed the accounts. So from page 97 in your pack onwards, we set out the responses that we have to the significant risks of material misstatement we identified at planning. There's no matters to report in response to the risk of management override and of revenue recognition. The response to the pension liability risk sets out more clearly why we've placed an emphasis of matter on the opinion, and that is also clearly laid out in the response to the property, plant and equipment valuation risk, and also referred to the recommendations made as a result of our work and the adjustments made to the accounts. To explain the emphasis of matter, I feel like I've explained this to so many audit committees, so my apologies if I have already told you this. You can wave at me if you know what I'm going to say. In April 2020, as a response to the coronavirus pandemic, RICS, the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, issued guidance to valuers saying that they may wish to declare a material valuation uncertainty in valuations they gave as at 31 March 2020. It's not saying the valuation is incorrect, but it's just saying that it might be slightly more uncertain because at that time, there was no building work, there was very little comparable information for valuers to use in their valuation process. So the valuation report included that material valuation uncertainty, the valuation report that the council obtained from their external valuers. That material valuation uncertainty is then put into the accounts, note 5 to the accounts, and so we bookmark it essentially in the audit opinion. That's what the emphasis of matter is. It doesn't qualify the opinion, it's just a bookmark to the reader to highlight that level of uncertainty. Page 114 on your pack sets out the adjustments that have been made to the accounts published in July, which, although large, have no net effect on the balance sheet. Pages 115 and 116 outline the errors noted in our work where management have chosen not to adjust the financial statements as these adjustments are below the materiality level. Overall, these errors would decrease net expenditure by £700,000. We've spoken to management and understand their reasons for not changing the accounts, but we do require the Audit and Governance Committee members to confirm that they're content with management's decision not to adjust the accounts for these amounts.
In your opinion, the findings are material or not in the context of the accounts?
The unadjusted misstatements are not financially material. We are content for them to remain unadjusted.
Thank you. Thank you. But that, if they were material, obviously, then qualified accounts, is there?
Yeah, so if they were material, they would have been adjusted as they were on page 114.
Yep.
So Appendix A has a letter of representation, and my sincere apologies for a typo on page 126. I've copied the wrong table twice. Page 126 should have the table that is on page 116, and that has been fixed in the final version that we have sent for signing. And Appendix B shows a proposed opinion which has the emphasis of matter included. If I may, Chair, I'm just going to quickly jump to the pension fund completion report now while I have your attention. It's very much the same as the authority report.
Can I just ask you that the paper you given that they need, you said it needs to changing. Some probably is not accurate. The statement you have given.
So sorry, the letter of representation is a purely is a typo in this report. It has been fixed in the actual version that we've sent that will be signed tomorrow morning.
Yeah. So then we corrected one. Yeah.
Yeah, you have the correct one. It's just if any eagle-eyed person had
That's what I want to
noticed,
confirm.
copied the wrong thing twice.
That's all I want to confirm. That's all.
So
Are you happy with that, Rupa?
Yeah. So
Okay. Yeah. Carry on.
so sorry. Okay. The pension fund audit completion report, very much the same, starts on page 131. Again, we propose an unqualified opinion on the accounts, but again, we'll include an emphasis of matter, and it's for the same reason. It's the material valuation uncertainty applied to the property funds held by the pension fund at the end of March 2020. And yeah, we've set out in that report the significant risks of material misstatement identified at planning and our response to them, and no issues arising from our work on the pension fund. Bit of a whistle-stop tour, so very happy to take any questions that members might have.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Todd.
Yeah, thank you, Lucy, and congratulations. Can I go straight to page 115? You've alerted us about Hounslow House. I'm not an accountant, so the chair can understand figures. I can't always. So what are you saying? What is Hounslow saying that Hounslow House is worth, and what are you saying it's worth?
So the valuation that was originally undertaken used an incorrect internal area. So the valuation, in very, very basic terms, the valuation of Hounslow House is the square foot of the building times a multiplier. The square footage of the building was too high, and that had to come down. So from memory, Hounslow House was 70 million and is actually should be held at, my maths is quite appalling, 63.
So where does your figures show on page 115 then?
So 115, that's the adjustment. So that's the movement and valuation. So the
Can
value.
you look at it? Can you look at it and give me the figure? Or don't you have it to hand?
I don't have it to hand, I'm afraid. It's
That's not good, is it?
It's the valuation is £6.8 million lower than it should have been.
Okay. Well,
sorry, the valuation held in the accounts is £6.8 million higher than it should have been.
Okay. Can I just whiz through the report if I could? And I'm really shocked you haven't got a copy of your report with you. I find that unacceptable. I want to talk about the whole of government accounts on page 94, and you say you anticipate completing the work. So can you try and put that in context? Why haven't you finished it, and what's the extent of the work outstanding?
We're unable to complete our work on the whole of government accounts until we have signed the financial statements. We have access to the whole of government accounts is essentially all council accounts are put into a spreadsheet and then they're added together by Treasury. The work we need to do is essentially to confirm that the council has put the correct figures into the spreadsheet. It shouldn't take us long, and we will do it shortly after we've signed the accounts.
Okay.
If you're signing the, sorry, John, carry on.
Can I whiz through? Okay. You've talked about the valuations of the property and the audit committee. There's a mention about leases somewhere, detailing leases. Can you help me on that?
So I think you are referring to the recommendation that we have made on page 108.
So what are you looking at to get that number? You look at it on screen.
Yeah, I have the report. I just don't have the account, so I don't know the exact. I don't have my working papers in front of me, so I don't know the exact value of Hounslow House.
Well, I draw my comment about what I said earlier then. I assume you didn't have anything in front of you.
No, I have the report in front of me, Councillor.
I apologise. Okay.
So in terms of the investment property, Lisa, investment property very basically are valued on the basis of the rental income that the council obtains from the investment property, multiplied by a multiplier that's set by the valuer. And in this case, we found that for a number of investment properties, the rental income used by the valuer that had been given to them by the council was incorrect when we tested that back to source documentation. So the recommendation is that the council makes sure that the most up-to-date lease information is passed to the valuer, and that has been taken forward.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I go to my last one, page 120 and 121? In your earlier drafts, Lucy, I'm looking at page 120, you alluded to a letter from Ofsted when you were talking about the performance of children's services. It no longer appears in this draft. What opinion should I take for that? It was a letter in February 20 written to the director with concerns that are apparently resolved. So I looked at that independently myself following seeing it in your report, and I wonder whether your absence of that detail would impact on your assertion that there may be a risk of VFM not being delivered in children's services.
No, very well spotted. There were slight changes on that page, councillor. We have noted that the council was subject to a focus visit of children's services in Ofsted in January 2020. We haven't then said when the letter was issued to the council, but we do kind of comment on the result of that review. And we have spoken to someone in children's services and seen kind of the action plans in place, and we're content.
Okay. My final question is on top of 119. You'll see that there are projections on the MTF. There's significant savings required. It's 18 million, and it alludes to after application of previously identified savings. Is that a statement of fact, or is there an opinion linked into there? If I read that, can I be assured that you believe the council will find those savings?
This would have been taken from
119, colleagues. Sorry, top of page 119.
This would have been would have been taken from our review of papers that were submitted to Cabinet for the MTFS. I don't have them in front of me, so I would need to come back to you on that specific question, councillor.
No, okay.
But it was just really, I mean, that's really there just to set the tone as to the level of savings that the council had identified that they're required to find.
Okay.
Part of TFS.
Lucy, that's very helpful. And I apologise for implying you didn't have a report in front of you, but you.
Yeah.
There we go.
All right.
Thank you,
18.6 million is quite a significant amount, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes. Wasn't mentioned at training tonight, but that's another story.
Yeah. Okay. Any other colleagues have any questions? No? Can we move on then, please? Next item.
Councillor Purwell.
Yeah.
Sorry, just to jump in there. Just before we finish this off, can we get committee to note their approval of the accounts so we can get on with and sign them tomorrow if they're happy with the accounts?
Oh, yes. Sorry, my apologies.
That's okay. It's just a recommendation on the report.
I should know that we are at this stage. Yes. Do the colleagues agree that we can sign the accounts, please?
Yeah. Move the recommendation to agree the accounts.
Thank you. Everybody happy?
Yes,
Great.
Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Todd?
I'm slightly embarrassed. I haven't seen the set of accounts.
It's in the pack, Councillor Todd, from I think page. Gosh, let me just have a quick.
No, the actual accounts. We could easily be circulated. They could be circulated after the meeting.
Yeah, the link. There was a link to them in the agenda and pack. They're actually on the pack. Just trying to find the actual page. And apologies.
It's Appendix C in the pack.
Appendix C in the pack, page 146 onwards.
I'm looking at page 146. Anyway, I've made my point. If you could circulate the signed off accounts, I'd be a lot happier, that's all. Please.
Yes, like, noted.
Okay. If you could circulate, yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Can we move to next? Let's see. Are we on to item 9 now?
Yeah, I think that's back with me, Councillor Perez.
Yes, back to you. Yes, yes.
It's a 2021 audit,
yes.
which was on the agenda at the last committee meeting.
Yes.
There was a high level audit outline for the 2021 audit within the pack. Just to note that we are well into the 2021 closing of our accounts, taking on board the recommendations made out of the 1920 audit, and we'll be planning to meet Lucy and various other Mazars colleagues in May to kick off the audit planning work. So it's more there for noting that the process for 2021 will commence now that 1920 is concluded.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Well, that's the way it should be, really, yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Note the report, Chair.
One?
Note the report.
Note, yeah, just noted. Colleagues happy with noted?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the next one is Mike, yours?
Yep.
Yeah. You're on page 158 to 159 to 193.
So this is the corporate risk register. As always, the changes have been highlighted through the report. Probably the two main changes was one to reflect that Brexit actually happened with an agreement, which meant there was substantial reduction in the overall risk. There are, however, still elements that we will need to continue to monitor as a council. And the other was that we've actually, although we've been updating sort of COVID-related elements, we added a COVID risk to the overall position. So those were the two key changes for members' information. Over to you. Councillor Todd, you asked about the recycling rate. I've asked the in the meeting on the 22nd, I've asked the service to incorporate that moving forwards, but they did indicate for Q2 it was 33.9%. So any questions?
Yeah, thanks very much. Very helpful.
Yeah. Anybody else any questions? Just conversation. Yes.
Yeah, Chair. Just with regard to the classification or the scoring of the new risk, I note that has been scored as high likelihood and critical impact. Given that the risk is described as risk of failing to respond effectively to a pandemic or to support the community in their recovery, I question whether it does actually come into high or whether it should be lower than that. High is defined as the event is expected to occur in most circumstances greater than 80% chance. So are we actually saying that we think there's a greater than 80% chance we're going to fail in our COVID response and recovery? I hope not. And
no, but at the same time, when the new risk is, we don't really know what the impact is. This is better to keep in mind and keep reviewing it, looking at it. That's what it is.
Yeah,
I think just later on, and then in the year when we actually review it and everything is there. But to start with, because we don't know anything about it, we don't know the impact, we generally assume a high risk. Am I right, Clive?
Yeah, I mean, this is the register up until the end of December, when obviously we were a different phase in the COVID life cycle to where we are now.
Yeah.
I think as we report to members over the course of the remainder of this year, you will see that likelihood coming down.
It'll be coming down, yes.
Okay. Yeah. I personally, I would have rated the impact higher and the likelihood a bit lower, but had this.
Yeah, that's a fair comment.
Yeah, would have the same similar effect, a score of 16 versus 15. So. Yeah.
You got a well point, but what I'm saying is where I'm coming from is that generally when we don't know the actual impact, we actually say it's a high risk, then we can adjust it as we review it. That's what. Yeah.
Okay.
Anybody else? Any questions? Really? This is the end. Really, basically. Any urgent business you have? Anybody has got any other?
Sorry, Councillor, were you happy to note the risk register?
Yeah,
Yes,
happy to
yes,
know.
yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, that my fault.
Thank you.
Yes, we should note the register. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Agreed.
Any urgent business? Any other business?
Not from me, Chair. No.
Any other colleague? John?
No, I've talked enough. Thanks.
I don't think you talked enough.
I'll quote short.
You will see the new chair next time. Thank you for all the help and guidance, support, and to Mike as well and the officers. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Chair, yeah, but before you close, can I move a vote of thanks to you doing a splendid job in as chair, and certainly it always helps to have somebody who knows something about accounts because they're always very daunting. So really, thank you for your time as chair, and really I'd like to move a vote of thanks for your time and effort. Thank you.
I second
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Purmo.
Thank you.
Everyone else,
Thank you.
good night.
Good night.